So welcome everybody to Monday Mugs. Our topic for this month is surrounding the value of the visitor process, just really how to help your chapter members get more exposure, which is going to help leverage your business, help the chapter overall. And there's something I wanted to point out to you all. I think I posted it on Facebook as well already to our page and several of the chapter pages. You can go to the bnipodcast.com, and one of the featured podcasts for the last couple of weeks has been surrounding the concept of growth is not the goal, which is, if I don't know if any of you have listened to that. I know our team has been doing a lot of listening and planning to do trainings around that at your chapters, especially with membership extravaganza coming up. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so if you haven't listened to that, go take a listen to that, bnipodcast.com, and it will give you some insight into, a lot of our chapters. Several of you that are on here are chapter leaders, and a lot of the leaders will say, okay, at the roundtables we have every month, your chapter president is supposed to represent your chapter at the roundtable. We have 4 a month, various weeks and locations. And the focus for this month is around the visitor host process, because having visitors in the room basically equals having a consumer at the table every week. And so thinking about that is key, because your members get exposure for their business. They have an opportunity to network. It gives them a reason to follow up. We're all looking for an angle in marketing to have a reason to contact referral sources and prospects. So our members don't necessarily always follow up on that, but ideally the chapter also will say, and they tell us this at the monthly roundtables, it's what's your biggest success and what's your challenge right now. And almost 3/4 of the participants of the roundtable, I know Bob Hill, if you're on here, you can probably recount the number. It's always around visitors, always around visitors. We need help with visitors. We need help with visitors. Well, why do we want to have visitors? And I can open up the lines to say, why do we want to have visitors? So you all I haven't muted anyone, so I'm going to pose that question to you all. At your chapters, why do we want to have visitors? Would you say? Why do you want personally to have visitors?
Because visitors are consumers.
Yeah. Well, I led into that. Is that Matt?
Yes.
I'm starting to know your voice. Visitors are consumers, right?
Right.
What's another reason? Yay. I'm glad no one said it. A new member. I'm very happy that no one said a new member. And here's why. Because Matt, yay. The mindset for a long time has been, we want to grow our group. We want to be from 20, we want to be 30 by the time our term is over, which sounds great, right? Yeah. But the whole concept of growth is not the goal is let's help our contact spheres balance out. If you think about it, go back and have your chapters. And Tim Roberts on the podcast actually says, at one really large chapter, they're like, hey, we're happy with 40. They actually canceled a visitor's day. He's talking about in the podcast. One of his chapters canceled a visitor's day, if you can imagine, based on, well, we hit 40, so we don't really need to grow anymore, which is kind of a chuckle, because you always have to continue to grow. And so, interestingly enough, the concept is, why do we want to add 10 new members, or why do we want to have those visitors? Consumers first, because our goal is to help our members reach more of an audience, right? And provide equal opportunity to all of the members. And if we have visitors, consumers, that's wonderful. But just having them there is not enough. And we've talked a lot about the visitor host process. In years past, a visitor host, literally one visitor host said, I don't need to go to the training because all I do is slap a name badge on someone and make them feel comfortable, show them the food and the coffee. And I thought, oh, no, that's one of the steps, but that's not the reason. So I'm going to review the visitor host process, because if a visitor if a consumer, Matt, to your point, if a consumer comes to the table and they're not treated, I don't want to say treated properly, because none of our chapters is like rude, but there's a way to make a visitor extra welcome, right? Instead of like, hey, we're happy to have you. So there's some things that the visitor host team and the leadership and support teams can do, not to mention your members, to help make sure visitors have a really good experience. If they have a good experience, what does that mean for you all as members? Well, they associate that with positivity. There's lots of opportunities, and I kind of want to, as we're talking, share about that. So I'm going to review the visitor host team and figure out just very quickly, and then I want to get into helping you all come up with more consumers and how to invite them and have you all share some ideas. Each week this month, we're going to take some green members and have them share with us just easy tips that they're using to invite visitors to network. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Is the visitor host coordinator, someone needs to corral all of our team, is going to help with visitor hosts, right? Let me mute real quick, everybody. Okay. And so when we're looking at the visitor host team, we want to communicate well with each other to make sure who's doing what, right? Not just show up early, slap a name badge. That still just haunts me when the guy said that. But this is the first and last impression sometimes some visitors will get. So we want to make sure that we have the right people doing that. So we've got one coordinator, two greeters, right? You may think, oh, we just need one. Always have two. You never know. Sometimes you'll have a visitor day without really planning. Sometimes you'll have 6 visitors spontaneously show up. And so with the push around having the featured speaker, planning for 4 to 6 weeks to invite people around their target audience, think about that. That is just another powerful way to have visitors on a regular basis. So you never know. You might have a new member with a ribbon cutting and they have 3 to 5 guests. So we always want to have 2 people on standby to greet folks. Someone to handle the orientation, the visitor orientation. So like a pre-visitor host and a post-visitor host. And then one person that's really good about following up, because your chapter receives, or your chapter visitors receive, when they're marked as attended, a survey. That survey actually says, tell us, how would you rate your visit? It's on a scale of 1 to 10. You would recommend it or you wouldn't. It's pretty simple. We get a lot of folks that actually respond to those. We do forward those to the chapter director and president. We do get some that are mediocre, and we definitely follow up just to say, hey, how could that visit have been better? A lot of it is geographically based, so we're able to get some feedback from the visitors on how their visit was. And then the responsibilities, like we said, dividing that out. If your chapter is missing a couple of these steps, just volunteer. Ask your president, hey, I'd love to help out. And we can put that into play. So they're also going to make sure that they have some supplies. We want to make sure we have a sign-in sheet. This one looks really great. It's got name badges pre-made, of course. We've got the BNI. There's a visitor packet that is available. A lot of chapters don't use them, but we do have them, which is like a visitor envelope. It's like a 4x5, or I don't know. It's a half, just a large envelope that you can put the members' business cards in if you want, just a little packet for them to take. You can give those at the visitor orientation as well. Oh, we don't want this, cancel. And so if you are calling in, that was my computer telling me that it's doing a scan. There's a brochure, or just simply printing out the roster even on there. And so just making sure you have, it's not the material as much as there's a focal point when a visitor comes in, that it's easily found, they feel welcome, they're not frustrated trying to find you. You know, they're making sure they're on time, and so we want to make it easy for them to find us. And so there's a list of some things on there, but you know, the Giver's Gain book, if you don't have a book on the table, just repurpose one of the Giver's Gain books that's in the new member packet. Ask one of the new members. If your chapter doesn't have a library, that's fine. You can use that kind of information on there as well. And then this is really key. We all know that visitors arrive early. And, you know, in talking to chapters, I was talking with a new group that's forming. Someone said, well, if we're going to be an 8:30 group, what time do we start? And I said, 8:30. And she said, no, I mean, what time do we actually start the meeting? I'm like, 8:30. Because we have 15 minutes of open networking built in. However, leadership and members, really, you might want to get there a little early, because guess what? Visitors are early. And that gives you an opportunity to spend more time with them and talk about your businesses. So ideally, the the visitor hosts are going to greet them, right? Give them their name badge. But even way before this, the visitor host team, if they've completed their online training, then they are listed as a visitor host. Your leadership team, your director, and your visitor host receive an alert via email that says, hey, congratulations, you have a visitor that has registered. And then you back up before that even happens is if your members are not using the invite and the registration information, that could be a big miss as well, because don't you want to know who's in the room? So you can do a little bit of research on your target audience that morning. So just having the sign-in table correct, there's some pre-work that we can do as consummate networkers to kind of up our game a little bit, to reach out to that visitor ahead of time to say, hey, Mandy, I see that you've registered to attend our meeting. Just wanted to call and introduce myself as a visitor host, or the president or whoever from the leadership team. But remember, we want to designate at least one person. So go back and ask, hey, who from our chapter makes those calls? If they're not being done, if you have the time, why not? It's a great opportunity to network. So all of these things are opportunities for us to network. Now, let's just say you're Joe and Sally member and you're not on the leadership or visitor host team. Once you see a visitor come through the door, or you could ask ahead of time, wouldn't it be nice? And this is just an extra. I don't know if any of your chapters do this, but does anyone email introduce their guest, their registered guest? We train our core group members to do that, mainly to let everyone know who's in the room. It helps the visitor feel more welcome ahead of time, but you can start networking with them before they come to the meeting. So that's really valuable information. During the chapter meeting, your president's going to announce the visitors, let them, be prepared for the day, but the visitor host is going to prep them as well to say, hey, you have time to speak today. If there's any conflict, the visitor host needs to screen that and explain how to, hey, during the introductions, you won't have a spot today, but at the end of the meeting, you'll have an opportunity to give a referral or a testimonial. If you want to give a testimonial about whoever invited you today or the experience, you can do it at that time. So your visitor hosts play a really important role, not just slap a name badge on someone. Again, still haunts me. So they're going to explain, a little bit about the meeting and that there's an orientation after. And this is really key as well, we're still finding when someone registers to attend, it gives validity. It sends them a confirmation. Once they attend, if you're a visitor host, they'll pull a visitor registration report, which would be really handy if the day before or 2 days before your meeting, if the visitor host will send an email and say, hey, we're really excited to have the following visitors, do a little research about their business so that you're prepared to talk to them in the meeting. That would be nice. So it's not written in a manual. It's just one of those little hidden elements that if you know who's coming as a member, wouldn't that be, I don't know about you, but when I was a member, I knew when we had visitors coming, no offense to my group, I was more excited to come to the meeting, just straight up. I mean, when we had, stack days and stuff, people dressed a little sharper. They showed up a little earlier. We were on our game a little bit more. And so every week should really, in essence, be a visitor. We should have visitors every week based on all the activity that we have with our featured speakers. It's going to take a little time for that to sink in, where the featured speakers used to just prepare for the members. Really, you're the featured speaker, right? So let's invite people. You've got new members that are inviting. So there should be a lot of consumers at the table. But knowing who's in the room ahead of time could be really a good value for you all. So once they register, your visitor host is going to mark their attendance. If they somehow forget or it doesn't get done, remember the email that the visitor gets to say, hey, Matt, tell us how your visit was. How can we improve? It basically says on a scale of 1 to 10. That's the NPS score, the Net Promoter Score. And some people that aren't marked as attended, they then send BNI Engage, the automated system, sends an email to say, Matt, we know things happen. We had you register to attend. Would you like to come another time since you weren't able to attend? on a weekly basis, I get emails that say, I'm kind of confused. I was there. And I'm like, oh, well, thanks for your feedback. Parentheses, not to throw the visitor host under the bus, but they didn't mark their attendance. And so we always respond to say, hey, Matt, thanks for letting us know. What are those business cards? Yeah, I think that's Jane, yes. If you all aren't seeing the screen, some chapters will poke a hole in business cards and just put a ring around it. You can get real creative with cards, but, we used to we put a lot of work into, we want to give all the cards to our visitors. And sometimes I think we invest too much time when, I don't know about you all, what do you do with all those cards? If you bind them, that's great. Or we have the visitor, visitor envelope that I showed you as well. So, yes, I would think it is. Mm-hmm. Yep, a complete set. So there's lots of ways to get the cards in the hands of the visitors during the visitor orientation. Of course, the box, remember, we passed the chapter box around as well. So, but back to the BNI Engage. So when a visitor is not marked, they get a reminder or a, hey, we missed you email. We respond back and say, oh, so sorry. The visitor host must not have gotten to mark any attendance yet. Because visitors are like, hey, I was there. I want you to know I was there. It's interesting. But that means they're more engaged. Any feedback we get generally is pretty positive. It can be a little frustrating for them. So we want to make sure your visitor hosts are marking the attendance in the system. And then there are sometimes people that just can't make it, and they send an email saying, hey, I didn't want to no-show. I wanted someone to know I wasn't going to be able to make it. And we always respond, would you like to attend another meeting? We'll move your registration. So that can be really, valuable information. Now, if your chapter doesn't have a fancy brochure or color thing, don't worry. All you have to do is go under chapter report and just print the chapter report. It just lists all of the leaders at the top and the members down below, right? So, making them feel comfortable and all that. So I want to open up and talk about kind of get into the meat and potatoes of today. How do you all, I know I see some of the names on here, and you all have visitors on a regular basis, and share some ideas, if you would. How do you work it in? How do you keep it top of mind? What are your tips and tricks that help you stay focused on inviting? So I'll unmute everybody and see what tips and tricks you all have. We've got some folks on here with many years experience. I'll put it out to you all first, or we can start on the opposite end. How many of you have invited people and they said they were going to be there and they didn't show up for whatever reason? Maybe we should start with that. I've unmuted everybody. Are you watching reruns of the Super Bowl? I'm kidding.
Yeah, I have, Kathy. This is Sonia. Many times.
Okay. Yep.
And then,
of inviting people that didn't attend.
Yeah, and they don't. Yeah, they confirmed, they registered. You're ready for them to show up, and they don't show for whatever reason.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we give them. And I guess the bigger question is what changed since they said, yeah, sure, thanks for thinking of me. Now, sometimes people are just being nice, right? I get that. Like, they don't want to put you off or whatever. But I also think there's so many networking events out there. There's the structured, there's the philanthropic, there's the meetups and, this and that. And everyone's busy. I don't know anyone that says, oh, I have so much time on my hands. I just don't know what to do. So everyone says, oh, I'm so busy. I just, can't make it. So that means to me, sometimes they really didn't see enough value. We know that sometimes someone gets sick or whatever. We get that. So those aside, so what are some things that we can do to help would be the dialogue that we set. I'm going to try and find an email template. The dialogue that we set for that visitor. So when we're inviting, I think sometimes if someone comes on too strong to say, hey, you need to come join my networking group. Well, number one, you don't need to tell me what I need to do, right? So I think sometimes it goes into our approach. But let's just say it was prepped and ready and it was done well. And the person says, oh yeah. So to show value, let me find the, here it is. Whenever I have a verbal with someone or text, we have a group, our crew, I don't know if anyone from our crew is on here, that's planning their kickoff soon. And someone said, can I just text invite? And I forget, you know, different generations and all that. And I know we all invite and verbally text, smoke signal, Facebook, you know, Messenger, whatever. But once we have that confirmation, I, regardless, will say, hey, I'm going to send you some information, an email confirming it. There's a registration link. I'm going to email introduce you to my team, right? So here's one layer, right? And I don't know if you all realize that you can send these from your app, right from your phone, from your app. You can go under visitor, under the little tab for visitor, and hit email a visitor or register a visitor. So either one, I don't have an active app on mine because I'm not in a chapter. So if anyone wants to test that and send it to yourself, this is what the invitation looks like. And it outlines, good gracious, I didn't turn off my email. They're all flooding in this morning. And so it's got the address and all of that jazz. They click RSVP now. It takes them and they go ahead and register with their email. It sends them, it's a two-step registration for compliance issues. And so that's a really easy way. The other is an email introduction. So let me find this for you. And how do you guys recommend using social media when it comes to having a registered visitor? I know some of you do.
Kathy, this is Bob. You know, certainly today, people are going to use social media to invite, and there's nothing wrong with that because so much activity and interchange is through social media. I think one of the challenges for all of us is that we go to meetings every week, and we tend to forget that how do we make a good first impression? And the first impression for visitors are when they walk in to that meeting. And it can make a difference from that point on to them as to what kind of a group we are, as to whether or not they are kind of impressed with the professionalism of the group. Before we even have a conversation with somebody about membership, I certainly try to talk to chapters about the two conversations that go on with visitors. One, they're just simply a visitor. They walk in with a wallet. They are prospects for other members of the chapter. But the membership conversation is a whole different conversation. And if visitors are really impressed with what's going on, they'll make that known to somebody. And then that leads to a different conversation with them about the possibility of membership and then what is involved with being a member of BNI, etc.
Yeah, I definitely think it's just one of the many layers of social media. So here is an introduction that I had done, just an email introduction, right? The dialogue, I know everyone's like, well, what do you say? Or not me, just in general. And it just says, hello, BNI Hamilton Mill, I'd like to introduce you to Alonzo Dunn with Turning Point Emergency Restoration, or whatever. So I've known Alonzo, you just say how you've known that person, read more about him here, right? And then I always copy like somebody else on there. But so that's just one way to do your email introduction. You can go onto your Facebook page, like Bob was saying. Certainly, if you have Messenger, I think highlighting on your chapter pages to say, hey, I'm so excited that my guest, Bob Hill's going to be visiting. You've got all these touch points, right? We're also inundated and busy. And it's a layering of marketing. You have to keep remembering these touch points. If you had a prospect and you said, hey, Beverly, are we going to have that appointment? Yeah, or we set up an appointment, right? And what do we do before that appointment? We're going to reconfirm. We're going to send a calendar invite. We just make sure it's on. And so this is no different when inviting. And so let's see. Where can I find the link to share? Okay. So we have a couple of chats on here. Let me get the chat. Let me go back to this. Let me find, I was going to find another slide for you guys. Yes, recorded. Yes, it is being recorded. Dead air is always good when you're recording. Sorry, I'm reading some of the, Jane said, yeah, the app for our core groups that are forming, you don't have that, but what we do have is as we can actually send Jane the email invitation, and you all can forward it. You can copy and paste it and forward it to your invites and do it that way, if that's what you're asking for. The link to share, so Annette, you were asking me that privately, but I'll share it with everybody. The recordings are posted on our YouTube channel, BNI Atlanta YouTube. So yeah, it will be posted. Give me about 2 days. It has to convert and then be posted there. We'll also be uploading those into BNI University under our regional training information. I think we're almost at our time, but I was going to try and find. I always recommend, and going back to we're all busy, right? And if we are all that busy, well then, gosh, we better be darn focused to get anything accomplished. So when we're talking about inviting, I know David with Corporate Dry Clean had said, I try and have all my stuff done by Friday of this week. And in our core groups, we talk about invite 5 people to come and network by Friday. Just get something as a trigger in your mind to set a goal. We do it, I put my car keys in the same place. Well, hopefully, all those things that you have set in your mind to remember to get things done. So if you were to say, okay, let's work, there are a couple of things. Let me find just a couple of things. I think when we are working to invite, it's a lot easier in pairs or with a partner, right? So figure out, and I'm just going to put this up here. I was just pulling contact spheres. Figure out what's an industry that is not represented in your contact sphere. When we're having one-to-ones with folks, if you use the one-to-one planner, how it's meant to be used, part of the conversation in a one-to-one is to say, hey, Jane, who do you need in the contact sphere that's not already represented in our chapter? And, oh, who do I need? And if we have some synergies, maybe we know each other, someone for each other. Work together with your contact sphere to build the people that you need in the room. For the featured speakers, several chapters, the SecTreas, they do a really good job for the whole month or 6 weeks. They try and cluster the featured speakers so that there's a theme, right? So that you've got folks that are inviting ahead of time, your growth coordinators, your featured speakers, get the chatter going about, hey, if we're going to have the featured speaker plan, use the 6-week plan to actually have the people in the room to hear your presentation. So really working on that ahead of time. It takes some planning, but this is what we do. It's network, not net sit and wait for someone else to do the work. And so what's important to us, we make happen. And whether you're going to invite for yourself, if you're not, then invite for somebody else to build those relationships. But I think if you were to select one industry, I talk about this all the time, just one industry for the week or for the month, that you're like laser focused, and I've used this example before, when you go to like a state fair, if anyone hasn't been, you should probably try it once. And they have those games with the water squirter things, and you're like, or even like a video game where you're doing rapid fire and you can't hold the button down. I think y'all know what I'm talking about. And you're like, bam, 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 bam. I want you to think that hard about what's one industry that you really want to have a better relationship with, not just to take, but to give. If you had someone in that one industry in your group now, or just to network with, right? But in your group specifically, that benefits you, but it spreads and it benefits the other members. It's time that we look around at our meetings and say, oh my gosh, who is the most underserved sphere here? Let's help them. And you pick the one industry, and you, every day on the phone today, it's Monday after the Super Bowl. People are going to be celebrating and complaining about all kinds of things other than the Super Bowl. And before you get off the phone, you say, hey, Jane, before we get off the phone, I just want to pick your brain for a second. Do you know a good pet sitter in the area? Or do you know a good CPA in the area? Or whatever your one industry is, just one. And she says, oh, yeah, as a matter of fact, I do. Why? I'm just curious. That's an odd thing to ask for, or whatever it might be. And you then say, well, I don't have a solid referral relationship with someone in that industry. I'd love an email introduction or a personal introduction. She may or may not have that information. She may just say, oh, well, we just use them. I don't know anyone there, but well, that's fine too. Can I use your name? You call that industry and you say, hey, Bob, Jane highly recommends you. She said she's used your services before. The reason for my call is I'm looking to network with someone in your industry. I'd love to have coffee, get to know you and your team. Maybe we could help each other out. Leave it at that. Don't go, hey, you want to come to BNI and join my team? No, don't throw up on them. That's what I call throwing up BNI. You wouldn't do that about your business. Why would we do it here? Just use it as a way to build conversations and ask people on social media. You've got your phone all day for the rest of the day or this week, and ask, do you know, who do you recommend for this? Or whatever the industry is, who do you recommend for this in this area? And use your network to help you. You don't have to do it all yourself. I think it starts with that, is think about if you really solidly invited and prospected. That's what it is, folks. It's prospecting for introductions. If you really did 5 by Friday, what would that mean for you? What if they don't? I've had someone say, well, what if I do all this and no one shows up to the meeting? Well, if you had 3 good conversations with someone in that industry, is that a good use of our time? Abso-darn-lutely. So use, we're all thinking, get a visitor, get a visitor. That's great. But our team is thinking, help you grow your business, coach you to be a better networker. That's what it's about. If that's what you get from that activity and no visitor happens, we're happy, honestly. That means you're taking action and changing your pattern of behavior and prospecting. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. We're going to hear the next couple of weeks from two successful members that are inviting, that they find it easy. I would encourage you guys to reach out. And, I think we talk about all the time, it's not that we don't want the introductions. It's just, I think a lot of times we don't have the solid, consistent activity to get those introductions because we're all busy. So just figure out how to work it in. It's for your business, not for BNI. It's your business first. That's what we really care about. As a byproduct, the BNI benefits with your chapter. So we will be talking next week about membership extravaganza. Be on the lookout. You're going to be receiving an email invitation from our national director that is inviting the members. It's the first time we've had a national webinar for our members to talk about membership extravaganza and how that can impact your chapter. It's for existing chapters that add 6 new members during April and May, that their name goes into a drawing. Whoever sponsors that new member goes into a drawing for a cruise with other winners and executive directors, and Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI, for a cruise in October. So be on the lookout for more of that. And we will see you guys next Monday. And don't forget to go post something on our BNI Atlanta page. Post something you learned or something that you're going to take action on, actually, not just what you learned. Thanks again for participating. We'll talk to you soon. And Jane, I'll send you that invite again in case you need it. Thanks. Bye.